Hello, it's me, Clayton. I just got back from watching Doctor Sleep, based on the Stephen King novel of the same name and starring Ewan McGregor as Dan Torrance and Rebecca Ferguson as Rose the Hat. When it comes to The Shining, the Stanley Kubrick film from 1980 and the Stephen King novel are quite different, to the point where even Stephen King himself actually did not enjoy the Kubrick version, despite it being seen as a cinematic classic. But however you feel about both versions of the story, Doctor Sleep pulls a tough trick of taking the best elements from both the novel and the film and managing to be a successful sequel to both of them. So let's get to the story, shall we? The story takes place years after the events of The Shining, when Dan Torrance, still troubled by the events of that film, has struggled with alcoholism and trying to ultimately find his way in the world when he has basically no direction. So, he also ends up meeting a young girl who has shining powers that are even greater than his. And unfortunately, she's being hunted down by a creepy cult by the name of the True Knot, led by Rose the Hat, played by Rebecca Ferguson. They want to use her powers to live for as long as possible. So you see, when they consume a shining person's essence, they can live longer. So that's basically the plot of the film, and for the most part, I say it's actually a pretty effective drama and horror film. Mainly because a good amount of time is spent developing Danny as well as our main antagonists. Rebecca Ferguson is truly frightening as Rose the Hat, not only being charismatic in her, with her leading this cult of immortal people, well, kind of immortal, I should say, but it's also just great to see her be so calm and commanding, while also just letting you know through actions and not words that she's done this a million times, and she's probably going to do it a million times after if she's not stopped. Abra, the girl that is being chased, is also a pretty good character. She essentially becomes the new Danny to Mr. Torrance's Halloran in this version. I'm not just saying that because Halloran has a cameo in this film, but also because he essentially plays the mentor type to her child prodigy type. It's a nice way to tie in the themes of the original Shining alongside this one. And when it comes to the pacing of the film, it is indeed 2.5 hours long, but a lot of the sections are done with such well-written dialogue and such strong acting that you don't even notice it's 2.5 hours most of the time. That is, except for a few parts in the middle where it tends to drag, and there are some parts that I felt could have been cut out, but a lot of that has to do with the faithfulness to the source material. It is, for the most part, very faithful to the original novel, but that can happen sometimes to a fault. Considering Doctor Sleep wasn't exactly the longest Stephen King book, but even then his books are usually pretty darn long, it does feel like some parts could have been cut out. And also, your mileage may vary when it comes to how the film combines the elements of the original book of The Shining and the Stanley Kubrick film. Because some parts work together very well, whereas other parts can feel a little muddled as to what it's really going for. But when it comes to the film's sections that are taken wholesale from Doctor Sleep, they're great. All the True Knot members have really cool designs. A lot of them are creepy in their own unique ways. Ewan McGregor is great as Dan Torrance. He's exactly the kind of tortured but still heroic man that you'd expect him to be. They actually even recreate certain scenes from The Shining, and director Mike Flanagan does a great job recreating the shots and the atmosphere and all the iconic locations that the film uses. Considering he's the same guy who somehow saved the Ouija films, you can tell he has a very good eye for detail and an eye for horror. So that's especially the case when it comes to the film's climax, which essentially is a nostalgia trip mixed in with a great final battle. So Overall, Doctor Sleep is a great film for those who are fans of The Shining in any form, and I'd recommend it to any Stephen King fan. I give it a 8.5 out of 10. See you next time.